Hey everybody, this is Forge Sports Media. My name's Trey and I'm here with Thomas, my good friend, and we are starting our first podcast. This podcast is going to mainly cover disc golf, but we will also talk about a wide variety of other sports and topics. We have a love for disc golf and we want to help this sport grow and we want to be a part of that. And so I'll let Thomas tell you a little bit more about why we want to do that.
So, we're going to focus on disc golf primarily, though we do want to focus on other sports that have a growing audience. Our emphasis with disc golf is going to be about the Pro Disc Golf Association, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and professionals, both in how they perform in events as well as their social media presences. We want to be an informational source specifically related to disc golf so that the average disc golfer can listen to us and see what's going on. While we want to be mainly informational, we believe it's our obligation to give our opinions on things going on in the world of disc golf.
You'll definitely get our opinions. But I think we should go ahead and introduce ourselves. Thomas, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hey, my name is Thomas. I was born in Memphis. I grew up just south of Nashville. I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee for college. I graduated with a degree in business management, and I've been married to my wife Grace for a little bit over a year.
My name is Trey. I am originally from Chattanooga. I moved to Knoxville for college, and I stayed because I met my wife. We've been married for a little over a year now. We love living in Knoxville. I'm a big sports fan in general, but disc golf is where my passions lie. So, Thomas, tell me about how you started playing disc golf.
So, you are the person that introduced me to disc golf in the first place. Trey and I met through a campus ministry, and he introduced me to disc golf with a couple buddies of mine, specifically my friend Reed. We got our first discs at Pluto Sports here in Knoxville, and I still throw a couple of those discs to this day. One of my other closest friends throughout college, Hunter, dragged me out to play disc golf a ton at the time, though he made me play much longer basket lengths than I would have preferred at the time. I've been playing tournaments since about 2020. My first tournament was in Morristown, Tennessee at the Frank Lorino State Warm-Up. So that was my introduction to disc golf. I've absolutely loved it. I follow it all the time. It consumes a lot of my week. Trey, you've been in the sport for a little longer than I have. Tell me about that.
Not that that's really helped my game, but I started playing in 2013. I had a friend who I played football with. He was one of my best friends. Shout out to Reed. Different Reed, but a Reed nonetheless. He introduced me to the game. He brought me out actually in 2010, and I hated it. I just couldn't figure it out. And then he convinced me to try it again 3 years later. I learned how to throw a flex forehand, and the rest was history. It just became such a great way for me to be competitive after playing high school football and knowing that that was the end of my sporting career in that sport. But I was able to remain competitive with disc golf, and like Thomas said, it's become something that I'm passionate about, something that we're both passionate about. And I've thrown a ton of discs. I have played a lot of tournaments, and I have a lot of fun, and I'm excited to kind of get to share that with you guys and get to share that with this podcast.
Awesome. So outside of introductions, we want to get into the meat of what we want to talk about today. The first topic is something that Trey's going to discuss, our good old friend, Nico Locastro.
Yeah, Nico recently signed a 3-year deal with Lone Star Discs. Lone Star Discs is a newer company based out of Texas, Conroe, Texas, more specifically. They pride themselves on being a Texas-based company. Their discs are often have names that are related to things in Texas, and everything is manufactured, stamped, shipped out from Texas. And so they signed Nico to that 3-year deal. They're giving him an opportunity after the unfortunate events from last year where he wound up being suspended for the rest of the season. He is really excited about Lone Star Discs. He's already put out an in the bag, and we've gotten to see what he's throwing right now. A couple of those discs that he is throwing and that he's he's really excited about. He is putting with a Jackrabbit. It's a neutral flying putter. He seems to like it a lot. He really raved about the Ranger, which is a straight mid-range. Its numbers are 5.5, -1.1. And so he is saying that it's the straightest flying mid-range on the market right now. So might be a cool disc to check out. He really raved about the Mad Cat and the Chupacabra, both overstable fairway discs that really fit Nico's style of play for his flex shots. He really thrives on throwing on the ante, and so you'll see him throwing those discs a lot. The Chupacabra is going to be very similar to the Firebird, and the Mad Cat is a little less stable than that, and so you're going to see him throwing those quite a bit. And then his go-to distance drivers are the Warbird and the Bowie. The Warbird is going to be your typical destroyer, Zeus, overstable distance driver that the pros are throwing really, really far. That's going to be his backhand disc. And the Bowie is a little bit faster and a little more overstable. And that's going to be his primary forehand driver. Nico's seems very excited about the season. He's actually going to be creating his own line of discs this year. It's called Sacred Disc. It's going to be distributed and manufactured by Lone Star. And he's starting all Lone Star this season. Nico seems excited about the season. He doesn't seem like the suspension has totally affected his morale. He has made a couple of comments here and there, and he is motivated and excited to play. It doesn't seem like he is necessarily remorseful. I mean, he definitely was sorry for the things that he did in the moment, but he seems just more motivated than anything else. Thomas, what do you think on that?
He definitely seems ready to play. I know you and I have discussed a little bit about our thoughts months down the line from the original incident. We, for the most part, agree on how we feel that maybe the punishment specifically might have been a little harsh, though looking right now, most of the suspension was running through the off-season, or at least the primary off-season, from events that pay heavily, and especially with a reduced suspension that the PDGA provided, it really allows him to start going straight into the 2023 season. So I feel like we're in a good spot, regardless of how anybody feels about whether the suspension was too long, maybe too short, depending on how you feel. At the end of the day, Nico is going to get to play at the beginning of the season, so we're excited for that. Hopefully for some changes. We want the best for any disc golf player, and it seems like Nico's got the desire to play a really good season and a really good sportsman-like season. With that in mind, Trey, you brought up the idea of this stopwatch, which looks like it's being sold on his own website.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say. He's so into playing by the rules that he's come up with his own Nico Locastro stopwatch. It's got his logo on it. He's ready to bring those out. He's got good humor about it. So I think that's an encouraging thing to see, that he would even be willing to like poke fun at himself and make a stopwatch from the situation, and it's good at times to make light of a hard situation, and so it's good to see that he can do that. So we do hope that we see some good changes from Nico this year, and we hope he has a great season. And I know some other off-season moves. I know, Thomas, you were wanting to talk about Alden.
Yeah, I love Alden. Alden is an absolutely wonderful person to watch play disc golf. He seems like somebody who really shows a lot of character, cares a lot about building disc golf as a brand, something that anybody can enjoy. And so seeing him sign a year extension with Prodigy is something that just makes me super excited for him. Anything that he posts on social media is super positive. I love his elephant stamp that he's put on some discs and given away some. I think he's got a lot of potential going into the 2023 season. He played 14 Elite Series events this past year, finished on average about 27th. I think he's got so much potential to start moving into that maybe 15th place average going into the season. As far as I'm concerned, I'm newer to the sport overall, but I think that this, for me, felt like his first real entry into the Pro Tour scene.
Yeah.
And so seeing him play really well, Trey, you mentioned that he had the Silver Series win at the Mid-America Open, and then his two other best finishes were two sixth-place finishes, once at Jonesboro and another time at Idlewild. Idlewild, which Isaac Robinson took down. And so
Prodigy teammate.
Love it. So we love Prodigy. Prodigy were the first discs that I had, so it's got a sweet spot in my heart. So excited to see where that takes Alden. Now, Trey, you were talking about Nico and Lone Star. Let's talk about Chandler Kramer.
Yeah, Chandler Kramer, my guy, forehand exclusive player. Mm-hmm. He signs a 1-year extension through this 2023 season with Lone Star. He kind of busted on the scene at the European Open. No one really knew who he was, but he comes out throwing these crazy forehand rollers. He's and finishes in the top 10 there. Plays on the lead card a lot. Gets to be part of that battle with Eagle and Paul that happened there. And I think he might be set up for a big growth this season. I'd say the biggest thing for him in this offseason to work on would be developing the backhand. And it doesn't even have to be like this 500-foot backhand. I mean, he can almost throw that far forehand right now. If he can develop a solid 300 to 350-foot backhand, I think that could really help him on those shots where the forehand turnover just doesn't quite fit the line as well. Speaking from experience as a forehand dominant player, sometimes that shot just doesn't quite work. And so I think if you could see him develop that, you could see, I think he could be in certain events, I think he could be in contention again next year. Do you think he could, Thomas, do you think that Chandler could even, compete for one of these national tours or the Pro Tour championships or like the Elite Series?
I think it depends on the field. Chandler Kramer and anybody on the tour. There's a lot of room for anybody to win with the field that we currently have.
Yeah.
Though he'd have to show a lot of resilience to take it all away. The European Open finish was really good. Number 12 at the Des Moines Challenge. He had a 20th place finish at another major, I believe. It was the World Championships.
Yeah,
he finished 20th.
He snuck into the top 20 worlds.
He's had several, 20th to 30th place finishes, so he's got the potential. He's proven himself. We'll see what the beginning of the 2023 season holds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another note is Paige Shue has mentioned that she's leaving Dynamic, though I don't think I've seen any specific update as to where she's going.
Right.
We've got Macy Veladiaz extending with Dynamic Discs, being promoted to the Supreme team.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so Macy is a local to Tennessee. The first tournament I ever played in, Macy helped run that tournament, and so she was the one handing out the player pack to me. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like seeing somebody who's like pursuing professional disc golf, like right here. That was like nuts to me at the time.
Yeah, I think she was actually the TD at that
time.
I think so.
Right.
So it was cool.
I believe her and her now husband at the time.
Right.
I think they weren't just married, but yeah, super cool seeing them take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's super exciting for her. Well, I'm excited to see what she does this season. I think she could pick up what would be actually her second Pro Tour because she won one of the wraparound events in what would seem like the off season, but they added the 2 wraparound events. So picking up the win on that is really exciting. So we'll see if she can continue on that. But the next thing we wanted to bring up is, and we'll do this every week or every podcast we have, I'll take a look at the PDGA website and we'll go over some of the discs that are being released and are being approved. And so we've got 3 companies represented here. We've got Discmania putting out a lot of new discs, Clash Discs having an interesting collaboration with another disc golfer, and then Lone Star, who we've been mentioning a lot, putting out a couple of new discs. We'll start with Lone Star. Lone Star doesn't have a ton of information out yet on these discs, but the thing that's exciting about Lone Star is they are constantly pumping out these new discs. And so they've got the Nimitz and the Bayonet coming out. We don't really have a ton of information on these discs, but I'm excited to see if they wind up in Nico or Chandler's bags or what these discs wind up being like.
Mm-hmm.
So next we'll talk about Clash. They've got one new disc coming out. It's called the Spice. And this disc was designed by Eric Oakley.
Love him.
Yeah, it's really neat. The Whale Pants guy himself. is doing a collaboration with Clash to make this disc. It is an overstable fairway driver. It's going to be akin to your Firebird, your Captain Raptor, discs along those lines. I think it's pretty interesting. I don't know, this might be the first disc that's been designed by a disc golfer that's not sponsored by the company.
Makes sense.
I know that Drew Gibson has done his Finish Line, but that's his own company. Like he's doing his own thing with that, and now Nico is going to have his own separate line. But this is the first time that we've seen anything like this. So
he's definitely taking the multi-brand sponsorship to an area that we haven't specifically seen. Though you see somebody like Scott Stokely doing a lot of that, it feels like Eric is really pushing the boundaries in that field.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited. I haven't got to throw a ton of Clash discs yet, but I think this will be one that I pick up and try to throw. I think Eric Oakley seems like a pretty awesome guy. Would love to support him in that. But then the biggest news, I think, were all these discs being released from Discmania.
Love it.
We've got the Taylor, we've got the DD1, the CD1, and the FD1. So 4 new discs. We don't know a lot about the FD1 or the CD1. Those discs have not been seen or released, or the other 2 discs we can talk a little bit more about because we have seen them. We've seen them thrown even, and so. But from what I was able to discern, based on some of the dimensions, the FD1 is going to be similar to the old FD2. The specs on the discs are very similar, and the same with the CD1. It's going to be a control driver with specs similar to the old CD2. So some of those old Discmania originals that were Innova produced, we're going to see some slightly different versions of those, is what it seems like.
Yeah,
on those 2.
Casey White had a video with Simon Lizotte for their Vlogmas that he released. It was either today or yesterday. Then feeling discs, trying to guess what it was, and Simon gave Casey an FD1 to feel. So it was in blue C-line plastic, and I love C-line plastic. It looks wonderful, and that FD1 looked wonderful.
Nice, yeah. I'll have to check that video out. Thanks for reminding me of that one, Tom.
Definitely. So lots of cool discs. I think one thing that we'll want to do better at is understanding disc dimensions so that we can make inferences based on the documents that are sent to the PDGA. We want to be able to speak to what we think that something will fly like if we're given 0 flight characteristics following the uniform flying guidelines that a lot of manufacturers use.
Yeah, so we can find general dimensions for like the basic discs and be able to make some judgments on that. And so we'll be working on that to get you guys better content there. But what we can talk about a little bit more is the DD1 and the Taylor. So I'll talk about the Taylor first. It is for their active line. I think those are produced by Yukon Discs. And this disc is going to be a mid-range. It's a 4-speed, and Eagle's best comparison. So Eagle and Simon did a video where they played through around using their mystery box bag.
Okay,
is what they were calling it. And so they compared the Taylor to the Origin, and they compared it to the Method, and they said it's right in between the 2. So the Origin is a pretty understable mid-range, and the Method is a pretty straight to stable, I would say, mid-range. So this disc is very straight. They seem to they throw it with a lot of accuracy, so it seems like a very solid disc. And then the DD1 is the one that I'm excited about. It's in their new plastic. They're calling that disc the Stratosphere, and the plastic is Horizon, and it looks very similar to Orbit or Halo Star. They're trying their hand at that style of disc. But the numbers on that one, according to Eagle, he said they were unofficial, but based on his throwing, he would say 11, 5, -1, 2. And so we're looking at a slightly less stable Wraith as a comparison disc there. You could also compare that to the Zenith from MVP discs. So based on flight characteristics and flight numbers, saw Eagle hyzer flipping that disc. So I don't know if Thomas or I could ever dream of hyzer flipping a disc like that. But it seems to be a straighter disc.
It definitely won't be hyzer flipping a new. one of these.
That's
maybe
exactly
very
right.
well and seasoned. So Trey, you mentioned something. Obviously, we want to be careful with the things that we discuss. We want to be fair to all parties. We don't want to lead on drama in any way that's not necessary, but we do want to be informational with the things going on in the world of disc golf. One thing that Trey mentioned to me as we were preparing for today is that there was a recent post on the disc golf subreddit.
Yeah.
This was, if I can find it, posted about a podcast from a group called, I believe it's Yika Shrinky. Could not tell you exactly, but this looks to have been posted 17 hours ago, which would have been the evening of December 8th, at least in Eastern time. It sounds like Evelina was discussing on the podcast the idea that there was an FPO layout that was announced for Texas States, and maybe a couple others, and there were people that were involved in potentially shortening the distances of holes. And in Evelina's words, according to the translators of this podcast, it sounds like a couple people wanted to shorten them because Evelina says they can't throw as far. The people that she mentioned were Missy Gannon and Holly Finley. Now, very soon in there, Trey was showing me that there was a direct response from Holly Finley. We'd have to find it.
Yeah,
Trey, do you want to talk about this right here?
Yeah, so Holly Finley responded on the Reddit, and her response was, from the beginning, "Is this manufactured drama? Sure feels like it." And she talks about how she got second in Texas States 2 years ago, and no one consulted her. But she did say that Missy and her did a walkthrough of the new layout prior to the event.
Though, as far as she was concerned, she wasn't there or associated with any layout changes. But we feel it's our obligation to talk about things that are being discussed, specifically amongst pros.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially in the off season. You're seeing people become more vocal, and you're hearing more content come out from these pros. And so I think it's interesting and something that's important to talk about. As a disc golf podcast, we want to bring what's going on in the disc golf world, and this seems like a pretty big topic.
All right, guys, we want to be able to talk about our opinions, specifically leading into the 2023 season. Trey, as you called it earlier when we were talking, our way too early top five.
Yeah.
Obviously not something we've created in terms of labeling it as way too early, but Trey, tell me about your top five.
Yeah, I'll go 5-1, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now, we've got some hot takes.
Big hot takes.
So at number 5, I've got Isaac Robinson. Isaac Robinson had a great breakout season onto the tour. He didn't even do the full tour this year, so I'm excited to see what he does throughout the season. His actual first tournament on the Pro Tour was Idlewild, and he won it this year. And so that was a great win to the season, and he played a lot of great tournaments. He's
got a second place finish at the Green Mountain Championship. Looks like he had the second place finish at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship.
Yeah, losing in a playoff to Ricky.
That was heartbreaking. I wanted it so bad. But
to.
Ricky played that hole twice in a row to absolute perfection. Absolutely unreal.
The power forehand's unreal.
Right. The number 3 finish at the Portland Open, and then a number 5 at the Waco Annual Charity.
Yeah, so he had a great season. He didn't play a full tour this year. He is going to do a full tour next year. And so I'm excited to see what Isaac Robinson can do when he's fully on tour, is out of school, and is playing disc golf full time for his career. Really like the guy. I think he's a high character guy, and he's a really, really great disc golfer.
Awesome.
So
number 4?
we just talked about this guy, and I think this is going to be a little controversial, but I got Ricky at 4. Ricky Wysocki, number 4 for next season. And I think a couple of the things that I see in that is Ricky had a great season. He had a lot of wins. He also had a little bit of disparity in some of his finishes. He had a couple of tough finishes. There's a couple of guys who had a better, higher average finish at the Pro Tour this past season. And so, and one of those guys is going to be at the top of my list. And so, I think Ricky might take a little step back here. You're starting to see the field get better and better every year. And so some of these guys who have just been dominant and winning multiple tournaments, I just don't think you're going to see that as much next season. I think you're going to see a little more disparity. I think you're going to have guys who maybe we don't even know the name of this year come up. And I mean, Robert Burridge almost did it this past season.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But to have, there's so many people who could, break out and win a tournament. And so, but I think Ricky is so consistent. He's got one of the best forehands in disc golf, one of the best backhands in disc golf. But I think that with the field improving, you're going to see Ricky take a little bit of a dip. And so at number 3, I have the 6-time world champion, Paul McBeth. And it was hard to put him at 3. That just doesn't feel right.
Right.
But we did see Paul, the world championship in some aspects saved his season.
Yeah.
He only won, I believe it was Waco before that, and those were his only 2 wins on the season.
Yeah, Waco was, I believe, his first. He won Memorial as always, but that was an A tier.
Yeah, it wasn't even a Silver Series this season.
Specifically. Then
he won the wraparound. He won the wraparound event, the New World Championships.
Right.
And then he picked up a win at another A tier.
Right.
So
he had 2nd place at Jonesboro, 2nd place at Ledgestone, 3rd place at the MVP Open. Maple Hill, what a wonderful venue.
Oh man.
Really good season regardless, but it feels like a bad season when you're Paul McBeth leading into winning the World Championships.
Yeah, he did not cash at the DDO, the Dynamic Disc Open this year, which was, an interesting tournament in and of itself. But I think Paul, again, just kind of falls to that Ricky effect that I talked about with his. And so I think that you're going to see, the field continue to get better and better. And one of those guys in the field who did win a couple of events, including a major, who I've got at 2, is Chris Dickerson. That might be a very hot take considering the way he finished the season. It wasn't the start to his season was super hot. And then he kind of trailed off. I think you kind of have to give that a little bit toward throwing a new bag.
Oh yeah, starting his first year at Discraft, that's just, it's a lot of pressure to play really well when you sign such a big deal.
Yeah, and he deserved the deal. He is
without a doubt.
He's a phenomenal disc golfer. I just think you're going to see that second year where he is becoming more and more comfortable with this bag. He has all the skills. He can throw a great forehand, he can throw a great backhand. He's one of the best putters in the game. He's so accurate. He plays great woods golf. He plays great open golf. And so I think you're going to see very consistent finishes from Chris this season. I think you're going to see him maybe take down another major or 2.
Yeah, he had 6, between majors and Elite Series, 6 top 5 finishes. That's nothing to speak of lightly. He's got a lot going on for him, and we'll see what this year brings. A little bit more comfortable with the bag, a little bit more comfortable with his game with the bag.
Yeah.
And we'll see where it goes. So, Trey, who do you have at number 1?
I feel like at this point it's kind of obvious that it's going to be Gannon. Gannon Buhr, the USDGC champion, the best average finisher for the whole Pro Tour this year.
At least amongst Elite Series. I didn't include the majors in there, didn't have that in my data set, but it speaks a lot of volume to be the best average finisher amongst Elite Series events. And he played, I believe, the most elite. I think he played in every single one.
He did play every single one, and that's not a lot of people can say that this past year.
To have played a full season at his age, 17, I believe.
Started the season at 16, turned 17 during, and then to cap it off with a USDGC win, that was incredible.
Unbelievable to watch.
What a fun thing to watch happen. Yeah.
He had the bookends of just absolutely wild season, with the beginning of the season almost winning
the biggest challenge.
Right. The loss to Drew Gibson, was it in a playoff or was it on hole 18?
It was in a playoff.
And then Gannon throws into the hazard on the par 4.
And then Drew playing a great chess match of disc golf here, simply lays up and forces Gannon to make a 40-footer in the bunker to push
potentially tie it, assuming Drew misses.
No.
He laid up to begin with and then threw over.
And so Gannon needed to make the putt to push to the next hole.
Correct. And a long putt from awkward footing, a lot going on in that event, and then proceeding to win the USDGC in absolute wonderful fashion. Talk about an exciting event to watch.
Oh man, that was
unbelievable.
That was a great battle with him and Nicolas Antila. They battled that really well.
Mm-hmm. I got super fun young guys to watch.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Gannon is he's not 18 yet.
Right.
He's young. He's already winning big tournaments.
The youngest USDGC winner?
Yeah, he beat Will Schustrick out for that title. And so I'm expecting Gannon to build on that USDGC win and take down multiple tournaments this year. And you're going to hear it here first. Your 2023 world champion is going to be Gannon Buhr.
Oh, calling it real early. I like it.
Real early.
We'll see how the beginning of the season starts.
So
on my side of the top 5, I'm going to start with my number 5 is Calvin Heimberg. I think his 2021 to 2022 showed a lot of improvement.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I believe he won 2 Elite Series events. Yes, he won at the D-Glow as well as Jonesboro. Boom. I mean, that's very solid.
Oh,
hard to say that you had a tough season, even though I feel like Calvin is always just a little bit away from just an absolutely excellent season. And so to see him take down 2 compared to his 2021, where the only win he got was a split with Ricky, is just absolutely wonderful for him.
That didn't even really feel like a win. I think both guys would say that.
Right.
I would say that the Jonesboro win in the playoff over Macbeth was a key moment in Paul Macbeth's season, but in Calvin Heimberg's career.
Oh yeah.
To go in, see Paul threw first. He threw an errant shot, and Calvin step up confidently and throw a perfect drive.
Right.
Birdie the hole, win the tournament, get some of the naysayers off his back who, there was some of the conversation, Calvin can't win the big one. He did it twice this year.
It's a huge step up. And so
definitely.
I think 5 could potentially be discrediting Calvin and his push up the rankings. So wonderful season for him in that regard. My number 4 might be a little bit testy for some people, but I think there's a huge reason to believe that Simon Lizotte is going to come out here and take it as a top 5 player of the 2023 season. Winning 4 Elite Series events. Absolutely wild. A couple of them back to back. Just so much going on for Simon. I think him throwing just normal disc golf shots instead of throwing crazy Simon lines, I think there's a lot of potential for him to take it on. He had an incredible season.
He did. It was
especially coming off injury.
Yeah, coming off injury. It did seem like it actually helped his game more than it hurt it. My one worry for Simon, and the reason he was out of my top 5, would be the disparity in scoring. So it never felt like he was consistent. He was either winning or like in the middle of the pack of the field. And so while he does have the potential to pop off, he also has the potential to, fall into the 50s. And so I like the consistency that you saw from my guys, and so that's why Simon was left off mine. But he's a fantastic golfer, won 4 events, like you said. Hard to argue with that.
Definitely. So my top 3 will look similar to the players in Trey's top 5 as a whole. At number 3, I'm going to come in with Gannon Buhr, though I think he has everything going for him to be a number 2 or 1 for the season. The only reason I put him at 3 is because I have constant faith that Paul Macbeth at number 2 and Ricky Wysocki at number 1 on my list are going to stay at those spots for the 2023 season. They're consistent players, and I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. Though I think the competition is getting harder, and I think we can see a lot more out of other players taking away from the victories that Ricky and Paul could have historically. I think they're going to hold on to it for the 2023 season. And I believe 2024, way too early, is going to be your first time that you see one of them slip out of the top 5.
Whoa, that is way too early to talk about. Let's see what 23 holds. But I would not be surprised if all 7 guys that we listed, so Ricky, Paul, Gannon, Simon, Calvin, Chris, and Isaac, I would not be surprised if all 7 of them won an Elite Series next year. They're fantastic golfers. They're all getting better, which is hard to believe. I think it'll be a fantastic season. I think we'll see a lot of new winners. I think we'll see Ricky and Paul do Ricky and Paul things too. So It'll be an exciting season.
So this is Forge Sports Media. We appreciate you taking the time to watch. Our goal is to be able to do this as consistently as we can with our work schedules. Ideally, that would be once a week, though we think that might be asking too much of people that work full time. So for the time being, we'll do this as often as we can. We appreciate you for watching, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks very much.
Double team, you boys ain't had enough of me. Bubble tea, tapioca make me bubbly. Going hard, tag team they call us Noah's Ark. Low Bazaar, bad golfer on the road to par. Dairy Queen, eating blizzards till they bury me. Larry King, 4 eyes he could barely see. Mystery, last song I'm in misery. Mr. Clean, underdogs call us Sister Jean.